We were shooting a scene and I was like, and they're like, what is she doing? I told y'all the time we had to leave. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Make sure y'all lock up behind yourselves, okay?
Yep.
Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. How is everybody feeling? I have a very special episode today. And okay, like I know I probably always say that, but I really, really mean it this time. We have Dedric and Krystal Polite here. These are amazing people in the real estate game. These are amazing men and women, okay, that are in the business arena. And I'm telling you guys, you are going to want to tune into this episode because there are so many gems that they are definitely going to drop. And honestly, they have an amazing show called 50/50 Flip on A&E on Hulu. So make sure that you guys check this out. And I'm very excited to bring none other than Dedric and Krystal Polite to Quality Pin Control. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Guys, where do I even begin? There are so many questions. Let's just start from the beginning. Where did you two actually meet?
Great question. So we actually met at a gas station.
Okay.
Right. And it was a gas station that neither one of us really ever went to because we both thought it was like a front for drugs or something. Because anytime you went, they never had any gas. Ever. And it was in the midpoint between his house and my house. So it was very close to both of us. And at the time, we didn't know we lived down the street from each other, but we never stopped there. And then this day, of course, I was on E, like I always am. Dedric was probably on a half a tank or more because, you know, he don't really let his car get below half a tank. I was on dead E. I couldn't make it nowhere else.
Guys never do that. We always do that as women.
We always force it. You know what I'm saying? So I had to stop. He didn't even get gas that day after we met.
I forgot about getting gas once I saw you.
So we met Pump 6 at this gas station. He saw me, then I noticed him, had on a nice little suit. You know how women are with a man in a suit. Mm-hmm. He came over to talk to me and I was pumping my gas. He asked, we exchanged words. Then we exchanged business cards. And, you know, back then you could have easily been like, hey, okay, well, you know, here's my number, put it in your phone. And he had given me his business card. So I let him know by giving him my business card, what type of woman he was dealing with, right? Not just that, oh, here, put it in your phone. So we exchanged business cards. He asked me to take off my shades.
So she had on glasses and it was stunning, beautiful, but she had on sunglasses. So I asked her to take off her shades. I just wanted to see her eyes. I just want to make sure she didn't have a wandering eye. Everything else was perfect, right? So yeah, that's how we met.
I didn't know at the time that's why he asked me. I was just like, oh, he wanted to see my eyes, real pretty. I said, okay. Then later he told me, he's like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure one wasn't sleepy. You know, it's nothing personal. But when he started talking, I was just like, oh, wow. And I did that because I heard his voice. And for 10, 15 years, I've been dreaming about this guy. This one particular guy, I had never seen his face. But I knew what his hands looked like. I knew what his calf muscles looked like. I knew what his body looked like, his hair, everything but his face. His voice was very distinct. I knew it as if I hear it every day. And as soon as he started talking, I was just like, I went from this to, So when I left, I called my best friend and I was like, yo, the craziest thing just happened. And she was like, what? I was like, dude, I just met the guy I'm going to marry. She was like, what? Now, I'd already been proposed to multiple times and it's always been a no.
Okay, period.
And so for me to say that to any of my friends, they're like, I know you lying. So when I told her, I said, no, craziest thing. She was like, what? Wait, let's back up. Where did you meet him at? I was like, the gas station. And then she was like, oh, Lord. She was like, wait. And see, I've never drank in my life, never smoked in my life. So you can't blame it on the alcohol with me.
Right.
And I told her, I said, it's the craziest thing. I said, this has been the guy I've been dreaming of 10 plus years. I said, and I just met him. She's like, well, how did you know it was him? I said, I know his voice like I know my own. And she's like, are you serious? And I was like, yes. She's like, well, what does he look like? And I had to explain to her. I was like, girl, he's fine, you know. But I said, it's crazy. I finally met him. And literally we met. And then what did you do? after you met? I know what you did, but what'd you do?
Yeah, I called one of my good friends and I was like, I just met the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She's drop dead gorgeous. And I'm telling him all about her. And then he goes and looks her up on Facebook and friend requests her. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? When I found out, she told me, she was like, do you know this guy named so-and-so, so-and-so? I was like, yeah. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, because I thought it was his brother. But I don't accept people that I don't know. So I was just like, hey, I think your brother might have friend requested me. You know, you want me to go ahead and accept it? And he was like, what's his name? And I said the name. And he was like, no. Do not accept that friend request. And I was like, he's like, dude, what is he doing? No, that's just a friend of mine. I'm so sorry about that. I said, look, ain't no sweat off my back. Like, I just wanted to run it by you, accepting randoms. But that's how we met.
That is, and honestly, it's honestly refreshing to hear something like that because, I mean, nowadays people are meeting each other on apps and I don't know. And also through referral, through a friend too. How are people even meeting people anyways these days?
Right.
Like, I have no idea.
We've been out the dating pool for 15 years.
I stay trying to hook my friends up.
We were before dating apps, so none of that stuff was around before we met.
But I tell you, I stayed trying to hook up one of my girlfriends with somebody.
You the matchmaker. They call her the matchmaker.
Oh, is that so?
I do. I stay trying to hook somebody up. But I will literally be on, I have girlfriends that's on like Hinge and certain dating apps. They get on it, and then I'm the one they have communicating with guys.
That's amazing.
On their behalf because they don't know how to communicate
She's
with
the relationship
them.
whisperer.
So I literally have, and it's crazy. I have to tell him because I don't want him to get on my phone and be like, yo, what's all these dating apps? Like, what are we doing?
She's like,
here?
I'm messaging from my girlfriend because they don't know how to communicate with these guys.
God.
And I got like 3 apps and then they'll call me like, or text me like, I have some messages. You haven't been in that
said
app.
this. What do I say?
Like, I'm only filming right now, and you talk about somebody that text message you if I could get back to them. But I love it. I love seeing people in love and in relationships, so I don't have a problem with it.
I just really love you guys' partnership, and I think that when you know, you genuinely know. And I love hearing stories like this where there was instant synergy because I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times there tend to be stories where it's like, I didn't really like him at first. And then he kind of like grew on me.
Once I found out he had $8 million in the bank.
Yeah. And I just love hearing that it's like, no, we both knew like
love
instantly.
at first sight, which I didn't believe in before I met her. Because our first date, when we sat down and she was like, you know, our first date was like an interview.
It was a business
she was
meeting.
grilling me. It was a business meeting. And we got all the little pleasantries out the way real quickly and got down to brass tacks. And it was like, you know, it was very refreshing just meeting a woman that knew what she wanted and who was straight to the point.
But it was a business meeting. It was when we sat down. Those pleasantries was more like, oh, so where are you originally from? Oh, I'm from South Carolina. Oh, okay, I'm from North Carolina. Oh, okay, how many sisters and brothers do you have? Those pleasantries. Then it got down to, I said, okay, what's your 1-year goal? He's like, oh, okay. I said, oh, okay, well, what are you doing in the next 3 years? What is your 3-year? Then it went to 5-year.
So I'm like, whoa, this isn't a typical first date. Like usually you got the bubblegum stuff you go over on the first date, and she was getting right to it. So then I started asking her the same questions, and I found like, man, she's ambitious, she's driven, just like me. So some men, I feel like a lot of my friends, we turned off by that. Like, man, why is this woman asking me all these questions? We just met. Like she even asked me my credit score.
Yeah, I said, what's your credit score?
On our first date, I see your eyes. She was like, what's your credit score? And people were like, you asked him that? That's personal.
And I tell people, full disclaimer though, I asked him that not
as a disqualifier.
Yes, not as a disqualifier, but as he could add a 500 credit score. I wanted to know so I know how we are to move going forward, right? If he had a 500, I'd have been like, okay, so that means we're going to do about a year and a half of some credit repair. That's not a problem. I had to do my own credit repair. So I got you there. But now it's like, okay, we ain't going to be able to invest in this or get down to business with that or start this business immediately. We're going to do this credit repair. Then we're going to move from here to there. That's why I asked him, right? Most people wait 2 years in and now you want to get down to the stuff that you should have asked the first date so that you know where you are. I asked him, are you an entrepreneur? He said, absolutely. Okay, what have you done in the entrepreneurial realm? Let's talk about it. Why? Because I'm an entrepreneur, and I know it's going to take a special person to understand an entrepreneur's mind. So if I said, "Hey, listen, let's drop 10,000 on this education course to help us get further along," he's going to be like, "Okay, bet I see the vision. I see where you're going with that. Let's do it."
Right.
Versus someone who is strictly W-2, and there's nothing wrong with that, but where they're saying they don't see the upside to that. They don't see the benefit. Why would we waste 10,000 for something that's a maybe that may not pan out? So I had to get that out of the way. Ain't no need for me to wait until I fall in love with him
to
then
find out that you're not equally yoked, which happens a lot of times.
So we found out all of that first date. Hey, are there any underlying medical conditions in your family? Why is that important? Because couples get together all the time, wait till they fall in love to find out, and then talk to each other about, hey, well, we both have the sickle cell trait. And now you want to have children. And now your children have full-blown sickle cell. Like, it's just certain stuff you really want to get out the way. And I know it's uncomfortable at first, but it'll save you a lot of discomfort later. If you get this stuff out the way early, and not when all of a sudden you just all in love and now you figure out that you really aren't a match made in heaven.
Aren't compatible. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I see that we definitely have that in common, Krystal, because I say you get all these things out the way while the bond is shallow.
There you go.
You know, and the thing is, I think people attach themselves so much, no matter what the phase is, that they just don't care about whatever else comes later on. And it's like, no, you need to ask these hard things right now so that you can make harder decisions when you have less feelings.
Yes.
That's true.
So I like that you approach it very, practically. But it seems like you automatically had this very entrepreneurial mindset when you already met him. What were you doing when you guys met?
When we met, I had 3 jobs and a nonprofit and trying to start a nightclub.
But since you were a little girl, you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, my mother said since I was 4 years old, I would tell people I wanted to be a lawyer my whole life. And I tell people I want to be an attorney. I'm going to own my own law firm, and I'm going to hire homeless people and train them. And I've known since before I knew what it was called, I knew I had to own my own business, period. Wow. So my first business I started at 18, and that was throwing parties, and had my own little business cards made up and everything, like throwing parties. 18, went to college. I directed and produced a stage play, took that on tour at 18, didn't know what I was doing. But it was a successful play, but I got robbed. Because I didn't know the business side of it.
You made a lot of money, but you also lost a lot of money in the business.
Exactly. On the business side, because I had a partner who knew about the money. I didn't.
Right.
And I'm in good faith, like, oh, okay, yeah. Just excited that I have a play that I'm taking on the road. But I was very much so, and still am. Since Dedric and I first date, he knew I'm a hardcore entrepreneur. And that is where I'm headed. Period. Could he have been a W-2 mindset individual only, and I would have dated him? Yes, as long as he would have understood my mindset of saying, hey, okay, my wife is going to be the one who's wanting to really get into entrepreneurship. I'm going to want to support her in this. Whatever you need me to do, baby, I'm there. I'm 10 toes in. So I tell people it's nothing wrong with people who are entrepreneurs who are married to people who love their W-2s, as long as you're supporting each other in it.
I love that. So what would you say partnership means to you guys individually and also as a couple?
I mean, to me, it means that you're equally yoked, right? You don't have to agree on everything, but your overall vision, your goals are aligned. So you're going in the same direction versus, I mean, you've all seen 2 people who are like oil and water. And you're like, they're in a relationship, they're partners. Like, how does that even work? Because they're going like this.
Right.
So you have to be aligned in your values, I think, to have a really good partner.
Yeah, I think you also need to understand whether you have a teammate or an opponent.
Ooh, I like that.
Early on in the relationship, understanding, for me, I think in a partnership, understanding that you have a teammate in this relationship and someone who may not understand everything. When we got into real estate, this was Dedric's dreams. It wasn't mine. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm a teammate. So whatever he loves, I love. And whatever he loves, I'm willing to learn. And that's what I ended up having to do, was learn it, and not through duress, right? It wasn't like he was making me get into real estate, because I loved him and I believed in what we could build together. At the end of the day, we wanted to build something that outlived both of us. And I was 10 toes in for that. As long as his dreams and my dreams got accomplished, it didn't matter whose went first. It was because why we were teammates. We weren't opponents. We weren't in competition with each other. It wasn't like, okay, you got one. Okay, we got one house now. Let's do my thing right now. It was, let's build this.
Yeah, and I found out what her goal was. So her dream is to own a chain of family entertainment centers. She's very passionate about giving and giving experiences to families and kids and joy. So she wants to own a chain of those. So the way I got her to buy into my vision, which is being a real estate investor and entrepreneur, was say, hey, let us do this real estate thing. We both came from nothing, so we need to build up some assets, some cash flow. And then once we do that, we'll leverage the real estate to pursue your dream, which is owning a chain of family entertainment centers. And that's exactly what we've done.
Wow. I absolutely love that. So how do you guys divide your roles and responsibilities in marriage and in business?
So in business, in real estate, there's 4 key areas. There's marketing, there's sales, there's operations, and there's administration. So when we first got into it, we had a chart, an organizational chart, and we literally sat down, had a meeting, and was like, hey, what am I good at? What are you good at? I'm going to pick the things off the chart that are my strong suits, and then you're going to pick the ones that are your strong suits, and let's see how they align. So she handles certain parts of the business, more of the operations and admin. I handle more of the sales. She actually does the marketing. So we kind of divided up the responsibilities. So it's very rare that we'll butt heads, because we know, like, hey, that's her lane. Let me not step on her toes. This is my lane, and we're accountable to each other.
Yep. And as time went on, our roles would change, right? Like when I first got started, Dedric was doing the marketing. But when I went into the business full time and he still had his W-2 job, I had to take the biggest part of the business off of his plate, which is marketing. That's the biggest part of your business in real estate. And then I had to learn marketing. And for me, in order for me to want to learn it and not be like, oh my God.
Right.
I had to make it interesting to me, and it became like a puzzle. I love puzzles. That's like my happy place. So if I could sit down and just do a puzzle, that's how I block out kids, block out husband, no phone.
Block out husband.
Yes. Everybody in
that's
the
her
house
hobby.
is doing puzzles. That's kind of how I find my center. So I made that marketing a puzzle to me. And that's how I was able to take it off his plate and really dive into it. But I would say, as far as a relationship and how we divvy up that, it's kind of like in a marriage, how we divvy
We
up.
both wear a lot of hats.
Right.
So,
It's kind of
mom, dad, husband, wife.
right. But you know, the moms is you're the doctor, you're the teacher,
Chief cook and
you're
bottle
the
washer.
cook, you're the cleaner, you are literally 50 hats as mom. Like my
Right.
kids.
She's super mom. Like my wife is super
No,
mom.
I definitely can tell. You're
Yeah.
super everything.
Yeah,
She
I
is.
mean, I tell people I'm very intentional about everything. So even when I had my kids, I would tell people I'm not having children before I'm 30,
Right.
because I wanted to make sure I could enjoy them.
Yes.
And I knew I wasn't done with really being out in the streets and having fun. And so I said, I'm not having children until I'm 30. So as soon as I had my first son, I was about 32, 33.
Yeah.
And I have, from that point forward, I've never looked back. Best job in the world. I am 10 toes in. Everything shuts down when it comes to them. It doesn't matter. And I enjoy it. Like most people are like, oh my God, I got to get up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I loved every bit of it. Getting up, feeding, it didn't matter what it is. I didn't realize till my second child that he never even changed diapers. until I was in the hospital with the second child. And I had to tell him, I was like, baby, just change his diaper. Just born. He was like,
She was so protective over the first one. She wouldn't allow me to change the diaper.
I didn't even realize that. Like, but I found joy in every bit of it. And that's how I am with my kids. And I'm super
She's an
involved.
incredible mom.
Thank you, baby.
Super mom.
Super active. Like, so I tell people I'm intentional about every
We intentionally
aspect.
waited. We both did. We were in our early 30s before we had kids because I wasn't ready for a kid before 32, 33 when we had one.
Well, really, I told it when I met him, and I said, well, when do you see yourself getting married?
What did I say?
He said, yeah, probably like when I'm 60.
65. I had no plans of getting married until I met her.
And I was like, oh, okay.
But she didn't try to like, most women would try to, she said it, turn a red light green, right? So red
Right.
light, I'm gonna turn it green. You gon' get, right?
Right, or
But
give an ultimatum.
Yeah.
She didn't try to force me. She didn't even like clap back or respond back. She just said, okay.
I just said, okay.
Right, just let me sit.
We
in it.
moved on with the conversation. Like, okay. And I tell people because, listen, a man is going to get married when he finds a woman he wants to marry.
Exactly.
And not a moment sooner. And it's no different from a woman. A woman is going to get married when she feels it's time. The only problem is women, and not all women, but a lot of us tend to overlook a lot of things, and we tend to turn red lights green.
Yes.
I wasn't going to do that with him,
Right.
and no other man, because I know the type of woman I am. You just can't play in my face.
Period.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm not going to pretend like I don't know you're not ready. So when we met, even when I met him at the gas station, I was like, oh, he's the one. I know I'm going to marry him. This is the guy. I never said that with anyone. And I am great friends with all of my exes. Am I not? Some of them were at our wedding. But when I met him, I knew he wasn't ready. So I sent him off for a year. And I said, go off for a year. Enjoy your life. Travel. Sow your royal oats. I said, just like coming to America, I said, go
That's
off.
what she said.
Sow your royal
Literally.
oats. I said, go sleep with a bunch of other women. Enjoy
My
your
jaw
life.
dropped when I was hearing this. I'm like, you're lying. I didn't believe her, right? Because a lot of times women will give a guy a test. They'll ask him a question. They'll say, depending on how you answer this,
Right.
and you answer it the wrong way, it could be over. So I'm like, nah, she's playing me. Like she's trying to trick me here. So, but no, she was really like, she knew I wasn't ready, right? I'm saying, oh no, I'm ready. She knew I wasn't ready. I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
I had a good
We
job.
can tell as women.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm out promoting parties. I'm in the nightlife. I just bought a motor. I'm living my best life, right? But I knew she was a quality woman and she was the one I wanted, but I just wasn't ready to settle down. And she was smart enough to know that and to push me away. I didn't want to go do my thing. I went kicking and screaming, but I had fun.
Exactly.
Right, for that year. And then when I came back, she was actually in a relationship with someone else.
I wasn't in a relationship. I was just dating still.
Well, you were dating
Like,
somewhere
I was
else.
just dating. So, and I told him, at the end of the day, I knew if I would have forced us, if I'd have forced it where he'd be like, I'd have said, oh, okay, yeah, you're ready. We'd have crashed and burned.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he'd have still been all in them streets. And
That ultimatum, which a lot of people do, they give that ultimatum, and then the guy feels like, oh, well, I got to. And so many people come up to us at conferences and reach out to us, and so many men, after they hear our story, they'll be like, man, I felt the same way. Like if my wife would have just given me a little more time to mature, but they felt like they were forced into it. They really loved that person, want to be with them, but they weren't mature enough
ready
yet
at
for
that time.
Right.
And we've been to, and I didn't realize how much the story resonated with people until we were in a conference. We were speaking at a conference in Charlotte, and a guy came up to me, and he was emotional, and he was like tearing up. And I didn't want to just go and, be hugging him like, baby, it's okay. Because I was like, my husband is here and he can't see me just hugging some random. So I was like, you all right? And he was like, man, it's just, he was like, I heard your story and I heard the podcast you did telling your story. And he said he had got his wife and 4 of his friends. They get together for Easter. He was like, and I made everyone sit down and watch the podcast that he and I did. And he was like, for the first time, we were all able to have a genuine conversation And he was like, when I told my wife, he was like, what did y'all think? He said, at first people was like, we ain't about to watch no more real estate conference. No, he was like, no, this is not about real estate. I think we all need to watch this together. They watched it. He was like, he told his wife, he said, I wasn't ready when we got together. She was like, yes, you were. He was like, I'm trying to tell you I wasn't. This is why we had so many problems starting out. He was like, but it wasn't until I heard this podcast where I said, man, if I would have just been given a little extra time. He was like, I loved you, but if I'd have just been given some more time, we wouldn't have had all the issues that we had in the beginning. Because he was like, we went through infidelity. We went through all of this. He was like, when all I needed was what you gave your husband. He said, and then it turned out all of his friends, all of his boys started saying it.
Felt the same way.
And felt the same way and started saying it to their wives. And it created, he was like, they didn't want to hear it. They were upset. But then it started real conversations and stuff. And then they started to realize how true this was. And they was like, oh, well, her face would have been cracked. He was like, and then of course they was like, oh, she'd have been mad if he didn't come back. And I said, no, because it'd have been Michael, Stephen, or Craig, whoever it was is who y'all would have been meeting.
Someone's son's going to get it done. Someone's son is going to get it done.
That's it.
That's my memo.
Son is going to get it done.
Yeah.
I like that, girl.
Yeah.
That's it. And I told him, no,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been. And
What's meant to be will be.
That's it.
Yes.
I tell people, what God has for me is for me. But I wasn't going to make this young man ready when I know he wasn't.
And you know what? I think it's the way women are socialized, right? It's socialized in a certain way. You need to find a man, be with him, lock him down.
Ticking.
I don't blame women for it. It's just how our society
Yes.
socializes young women, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that we got to be real about.
When you're 30, hit that 30 and your aunts and them was like, ooh, girl, you ain't married, you ain't got no kids.
Like,
yet.
something wrong with you.
Ooh, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely a lot of societal pressure. And then also in your 30s, it's the wild, wild west. Like I'm in my 30s now and I'm like, life looks so drastically different for everybody.
Yes.
Where it's like you have some people that are getting married, they're having kids, they're on their second baby. And then you have other people where it's like, they're trying to figure out, should I stay in this career? How do I increase my income? What am I doing with my life?
Yes.
And you're all experiencing this like at the same time.
Yep.
So it's easy to give into those societal pressures.
Yes.
And I think when you intrinsically know your value and your identity, which it seems like you always did.
Yeah.
And I really resonate with that a lot. To me, it's like whatever comes, whatever goes. Like I'm
Don't
very
settle.
much okay with it.
You're not willing to settle.
Yeah. I'm genuinely okay with it. And I think the thing is like people really think like I have to stay here or it does not get better than this. I don't want to start over or what have you. But I also think that comes from my like spiritual belief as well. Like being a Christian for me, like knowing where my value comes from, I just know like Jeremiah 29:11, like I know that God has amazing plans for me.
Absolutely.
So if not this, something better.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, period. So I love that you did that. I really commend you. And switching gears here, I want to get into the meat and potatoes about this TV show, 50-50 Flip. I want to know how you guys even had this opportunity. How did this come about?
Well, the networks it started from a mastermind we were in. And in that mastermind, my husband's like, listen, we're trying to really get more private investors to invest in our real estate deals. And the director of that mastermind was like, hey, you guys need to start documenting your journey. You need to start pulling out your camera, recording everything you're doing, going in and out these houses, these deals. And I was like, oh God, it brought stress to me because I'm super private. Dedric has no problem with that. So I was like, okay, fine, you can do it, recording. And so he was like, okay, we just started documenting our journey, putting everything good, bad, indifferent, you name it, putting it on social media to show people that we were doing this. And it got a lot of attention from networks. So they had been in our DM for about 2 years. And we look at him and be like, yeah, these people be scamming all the time. I wasn't interested. We had 2 small kids. And then A&E had been in our DMs for about a year. And I never looked at them. I knew a bunch of people were coming in, but I never opened them because I was just like, oh, they could see if you read them. So I'm just not going to read them.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know if it was true, but I felt that's what happens if you read them. They probably know that you can read them. So I ain't going to read them. And it wasn't until they got a hold of our 1-800 number, called it, our secretary answered. They made her promise to get us the message and for us to call them back. So when I came into the office that day, our secretary, Melissa, was like, hey, this lady from A&E, the network, called, and she said she'd been trying to reach you guys for a long time in your DMs, but she hadn't gotten a response, and she made me promise for you guys to give her a call back. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I went walking. She was like, no, she made me promise that you guys would call her back. I said, why would you do that? She's like, I know, but she was so nice. Could you please just call her back? And I said, yeah, that's fine. So I called her back. And she was like, listen, I just want to start off by saying we are actually A&E. We are not a casting company.
We're in-house casting company for A&E.
In-house working for A&E.
On a TV show.
And we didn't know what that meant. We were just like, okay.
Right.
How can we help you? Mm-hmm. And then she went to explain that they're looking to start 3 new shows, flipping shows. And they've been following us. They love what we do. And then we was like, yeah, well, we're not flippers. They was like, what? We was like, what we do on our TV show, on our social media, is those are our properties that we own. So we don't actually flip houses. And it was like, oh, okay, well, we don't care. We just love what you guys are doing. We love you. We love everything about you guys. But they were looking for 3, and they were interviewing like thousands.
And they wanted couples who had their own following already on social media who were doing real estate.
Yes. So we ended up doing interview after interview after interview.
This is right after Zoom. Right after COVID. During COVID, 2020, 2021. And we were like, we never even dreamed of like getting a TV show. Like, of course you dream of it, but you don't think it's actually going to happen. And we were like, let's just see how far we can take it.
Yeah, we was like, we ain't going to do it.
We didn't think they were actually going to pick us.
But we also was like, yeah, we're not going to do it, but let's just see how far we're going to get to go. Mm-hmm. Just so we could tell people like, yeah, we got to the final round. Like, and then we had that final Zoom call, and it was like, hey, we wanted to offer you guys one of the 3 slots. And both of us at the time, we were on the Zoom, and we just turned to each other like, okay.
Look at God. We weren't expecting it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Can we get back to you on this?
Oh, my goodness.
Because at that point, he didn't want to do it. And then I was kind of like, now when we started, it was like, I was like, yeah, we're not doing a TV show. And he was like, well, babe, I mean, it would be kind of fun. I was like, yeah, we're not doing it. We can see how far we go, but we ain't gonna do it. Like, and then when we got it, he was like, yeah, we ain't doing no TV show. Babe, look, that's too much.
They offered it to us because we kind of have to.
Yeah, I was like, babe, they done went through thousands and got down to 3 and we were 1. We can't go back on that word.
Right.
And he was like, oh my God. So we actually did it. Season 1 was a nightmare. Like, you don't know what you don't know going into TV. And
filming is a full-time job. Filming a TV show. It takes a lot of time. Jobs. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of energy. And people don't realize, they see you flipping houses on TV, so they think that like the network is paying for these houses and paying for the repairs. No. They're just there filming and documenting everything you do. But we have to buy all the houses. We have to fix them. And we were doing, 4 or 5 projects at a time. And doing 1 flip at a time is intense. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of work. But doing like 5 at a time is like, we got a lot of gray hairs from the pressure and dealing with all the contractors and the problems and issues you got to overcome.
But season 1 definitely stretched us and is what we needed. So by the time we came back for season 2, we had built a system.
And our capacity had grown.
Oh, yeah. Because season 1, the first time, and we tell people, first time we ever flipped the house was on national TV. So when they saw that first house being flipped, that was our first.
Because we weren't selling. We would buy property, renovate it, and then rent it out to a long-term tenant.
Okay.
We never really sold.
We didn't sell anything.
It's different when you renovate the property to sell. It's a different process.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for us, we had to learn the flipping process on television. So that added an immense amount of pressure on that.
You can't mess up because you're on national TV.
And they are documenting it because A&E shoots documentary style. HGTV is more scripted. A&E is just there. They documenting what you're doing.
Everything that happens, they film.
Good, the bad. When water mains break, they right there. When the contractor screws up, they right there. One of our contractors' first season started a little fire. They were rushing in to catch it. Like, he was like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that film. They don't care.
Right.
You have signed.
Yeah.
They're documenting when he flooded our whole basement, when they done hit a pipe, flooded the basement, the front lawn flooded.
That adds the drama for TV.
We're pulling up,
that.
don't know, have a clue. And as we're pulling up, they're rushing to get us mic'd up. We don't know why, and no one could tell us why, because they want real reactions.
Right.
We're pulling up. We're like, what is going on?
So our misery is kind of their entertainment, right? The audience is entertainment. So
That's reality TV.
And it's documentary style. So they're shooting, which I love that because it's not fake. And when people saw our YouTube channel and our videos, they saw that it wasn't fake. That's who we were. Our Instagram, that's who we are. So the TV show gives them an extension of that. They still get to see us. They see our kids. They see our business model. The difference is we're also educating people on holding these properties, and not like most people where they're like, oh, we're flipping this house for $2.5 million and we acquired it for 1.1. Most people will never in a million years get that and get to understand how to buy a $1.1 million house to flip it for $2.1 million. Never. But we're doing starter price points, starter house price points.
So yeah, and our market in North Carolina is very affordable. So the average single family house is like $250,000 sale price. So we're buying houses for like $75,000 to $125,000, putting $50,000 in renovations into it and selling them for $250,000 to $300,000,
Wow.
which is affordable, right? Compared to New York City, Boston, it's a starter home. So it's more attainable to the average person. So when people watch our show, they're like, man, I work at Dwayne Reed. I work at CBS. I can actually do that. It's not like a $2 million property that I can never afford.
No, and we break down how we acquire it, how we found the house, how we get the financing for it without using our own money. We break this down to show people you can literally do
That the average person could do it.
what we're doing, and it doesn't matter. You can work at Wegmans or Kroger's grocery store. You can do exactly what we're doing. And we were doing it. We started doing it part-time while both of us was still working full-time jobs.
Wow. That is like, first of all, those prices, it's kind of like
Right.
New York could never.
Exactly.
New York could never do it. I mean, just even to backtrack a little bit. So, because I did my research too. So you guys both were working your W-2 jobs still.
Yes.
And then I remember seeing that you mentioned that you quit your job first, but you guys made a very strategic departure from your W-2 job so that you would know what it's like to live off of one income first.
Yes,
your
you did do your research.
Yeah.
Okay, period. And then you guys got into wholesaling. So I need you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because I'm not even sure my audience knows this, because I'm still new to this, but I actually am a realtor myself.
Nice.
And so my license obviously is out here in New York City, and I'm just exploring what the different avenues really are.
Yep.
And so can you explain wholesaling and how that went? Because I believe that's how you guys started to generate the income.
So we got into wholesaling first. So wholesaling is kind of like the pawn shop of real estate, right? So if you have a Rolex watch or whatever, and you go to the pawn shop and you spent $30,000 on your Rolex brand new, when you go to the pawn shop, they're not going to give you $30,000, right? Because they got to still make money. So they might give you $12,000 for it. Right, you may really need money fast because you have an emergency. You gotta liquidate something. So they'll give you $12,000 for it. Then they'll turn around and sell it for $15,000, and that they're wholesaling your watch. It's the same thing with houses, right? People go through deaths, divorce, they lose their job, and life happens to everyone. So at any one point, 1% to 2% of property owners are going through some type of distress or life situation where they can't wait for 6 months for it to sit on the market, listing it with an agent, or maybe it's an ugly house and it's falling down and it needs a lot of repairs. Those are the properties that are distressed, either physical distress or financial distress that the owner's going through, where a wholesaler or an investor will be the best buyer. Somebody who can give them cash money quickly, 30, 60, 90 days, who will buy as is, no questions asked. So that's what we started doing. We did that to build up cash, big chunks of cash. we use that cash to buy rental properties, right? So wholesale, flip, make quick chunks of cash, put that into income producing assets, which are buy and hold rental properties, income properties. So that was our strategy. And the goal was to escape the rat race, right? Neither one of us wanted to work for the next 30, 40 years and try to, depend on a pension or retirement to support us. We wanted to own our own time. So we were making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month wholesaling. So at a certain point, we were like, all right, well, one of us needs to go full time. So we actually fired her boss first. Once we were consistently making that type of income for a few months, we strategically lived off of just my salary. In the first quarter, we lived off of my salary and 75% of her salary. The second quarter of that year, we lived off of my salary and then 50% of her salary, right? And then the third quarter was 25% of her salary plus my full salary. Then the fourth quarter, we just lived off my salary so we can get used to living off of one income. We're still doing real estate, but now we like, all right, we can live off of one W-2 job plus our real estate income. And we're like, all right, it's time to fire your boss. So she went full time in the business first. And then I still kept my job for another like 12 to 24 months later. The only reason I kept my job is because I was making over 6 figures and I wanted to be able to qualify for mortgages. So mortgage companies and loan officers will more readily give you a mortgage loan if you have a 9-to-5 job than if you're an entrepreneur.
Right.
Because they see that 9-to-5 income is more steady and more stable. Right. So that's kind of the strategy we used.
Wow, you guys broke that down. It was very palatable to me. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
So, all right, on reality TV, usually it actually has like an impact, sometimes, a lot of the times negative impact on relationships. How would you guys say that reality TV impacted your relationship?
We spoke to a bunch of reality TV stars before we got into it.
Beforehand.
And one of the advice that people, I can't name the name, but it was a couple, and they were like, look, you were married before this TV show. Make sure you married after the TV show. So don't let these cameras and this TV show come between what you guys have. Always remember that the foundation is your relationship.
Yep. And I made it very clear, though, to them beforehand. It was, this ain't Bravo.
This ain't Housewives. This ain't
and I know because I love them shows. And
Love and Hip Hop New York. No, shout out to them. We watched them.
Yeah, and I used to watch them when I had time. But I told them this is not that. So, and we control our narrative. So if I say, turn this mic off.
Turn it off.
Turn it off.
Yeah.
And I don't mean from here. Turn it off from there.
Oh,
so it's not being fed anymore.
Because they'll tell you that. Oh, yeah, it's off.
Yeah, it's off from here.
But it's still rolling in the background.
Still running in the back. And they can still use any of that audio. So, and then I would tell, and we had an amazing, we have such an amazing team that they understand us very clearly. And if we have to discuss something, we'll say, okay, stop for a second. We got to discuss something. But it is always about us first. And we don't really have too many instances where we step on each other's toes because we both play a different role within our business and things like that. But if we're having to read lines on something and I'll be like, no, baby, you're not going to say that. I don't like how that reads. Say that differently in this way, even if it's something that I might find, someone else may find offensive. I'll be like, yeah, no, we're not going to say that, baby. Let's say something different and say it in a different way. Like we control our narrative. And that is a huge part of us being on the same page. And A&E is great with understanding that. Like we've never had an issue with them. And then, of course, with A&E, Hulu bought the rights to our second season. So that's how we actually ended up.
Huge
on
platform.
Hulu.
50 million subscribers.
It was a partnership that A&E had been trying to get happen for like 5-10 years. Hulu was like, no, we have two different audiences. So they would never entertain it. Then they finally said, okay, submit all the shows you want us to consider. We'll look at them and then we'll tell you if there's anyone that we like. Well, they submitted, I think he said a little over 50 shows and they chose 3.
To go onto Hulu.
To go onto Hulu's platform.
That were previously on A&E.
Big Boy's RV show, Rachel Ray, one of her cooking shows, and then our show were the 3 shows that they chose.
Oh my God.
So that's how we actually ended up on Hulu. And this was only after a first season with only 6 episodes.
Season 2, we did 10 episodes.
Season 2, we ended up doing
Hulu.
10 episodes. And that one aired last year. So that's how it ended up. But for us, it's always about family first, right? When we got to discuss something, excuse me, y'all, we need a second.
And even with our kids, we have 2 kids, so they know whenever we have something with our kids and a certain cutoff time, production stops, and we're going to pick up our kids, take them to practice.
All right, and I tell them if I say 4:30, we have to leave. It don't mean 4:30 y'all start to unmic us. It means 4:30 I'm in the car.
Right.
Now, y'all can stay here and look at each other if you want. But 4:30, me and Dedric's in the car. So you better wrap up at the time that you know you can wrap up, because first season, they didn't understand that. And it took one time for us to be at the table, and we were shooting a scene, and I was like, I looked at Dedric, and they were shooting, and I was like,
I'm done. Yeah.
come on, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
And I'm unmicing. I'm like, and they're like, what is she doing? I told y'all the time we had to leave. Our son has a performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Make sure y'all lock up behind yourselves, okay?
Yep.
Let's go.
I love that. I love that you really stand in it. So with the first season, I know you mentioned it was like a little bit of a nightmare. So did you feel at any point any pressure to like portray any certain image, especially because there are a lot of shows, you know, that showcase, you know, just the behind the scenes of, you know, real estate, things like that. And a lot of them, typically real estate shows tend to be highly like produced and highly scripted. So I know you mentioned that yours isn't scripted really, but did you feel any pressure at any moment? Like, okay, like how do I kind of make this interesting? How do I...
No, that was the great thing about A&E is that they were just like, hey, be yourselves. They were like, the reason we chose you guys. And, you know, we're not paid actors, so the only thing we can be is ourselves, right? I'm not Denzel, even though I wish I was. Right? But,
Hey,
you know,
better than Denzel.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, just so it's like you can just play yourself, and that's the best thing about it. And when you're flipping houses, if something can go wrong, it will. When you're renovating, as soon as you open up those walls, you don't know what you're going to find. So they don't even have to manufacture it. The drama is just in the business of flipping houses. There's always stuff that's going to go wrong. There's always money you're going to have to spend that you didn't account for. So that's what makes it entertaining.
Yeah, we felt the pressure more so of trying to stop stuff from going wrong. It was just so much. It was kind of
It's like whack-a-mole. Like, which problem do you solve?
Are you doing this on purpose? Like, at this point, like, what are y'all doing? It got to the point where we was like, they had so much footage of so much stuff going wrong. It was kind of like they just had to pick what not to show at this point. Like, it was like, if it can't go wrong, it went wrong during season
That's why
1.
Nothing scares us now. We renovate houses. We're like, we've seen it all. Like,
literally, like
I did hear you guys sharing a story about there was like poop everywhere in one of the houses.
Oh yeah, poop all over the walls.
I don't even know how it got there.
Girl, me neither, especially when it's up walls and stuff. And you're like, oh my God. Like when crazy as season finale house of season 2. Season finale was the biggest transformation we've done to date. And it was a full gut. But when you walked in it and you walked into the bathroom, it was doo-doo everywhere. Like, and it's crazy because I didn't walk into that one first. Dedric did. And he let us walk into it, not knowing that it was doo-doo everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm walking into it just like, yeah. So he was like...
She's seeing it for the first time on camera after we already bought the property. And she's seeing that it has poop all over the walls and we got to go in there and renovate this.
I'm walking in and you really don't even want to walk in with your shoes.
Right.
Because at that point, I was like, we can throw these shoes away.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing these home. And we walk in, and that's just like, well, y'all go into that unit, we'll go, because it was a duplex that we converted into a single family. He was like, y'all go into that unit, we'll go into this one. And I was like, great, because that one was, it had a lot of stuff on I never went to the bathroom. I looked in the door like, okay, yep, all right.
I'm good.
And that's it. So I really didn't walk a lot of them properties until the camera. We went into that bathroom. I was thoroughly disgusted. And I was like, Dedric, I know you lying. I know you didn't have
I
me
never
going.
went into that one either. I went
was
to other
like,
units.
it was doo-doo. I was like, oh.
He said, this don't make no sense.
I was, it was doo-doo on the walls, near the mirror. Like, but, and that's what they love. Like when season 1, I'd never been into a house after it was demoed, like freshly demoed.
Right.
So I'm in the bathroom, we're filming, and there's this, what do they call it?
They took the toilet up, they took the floors up.
ABF. Always be filming. So we had filmed the scene and then they cut. And so we started talking while we were still in the bathroom, all of us just talking. And I had looked on the ground and I was like, oh, the cement. I was looking at some cement. And I'm asking Dedric some questions and we're in there with our contractor. And I'm very nosy. I thank you for putting it lightly. I'm very nosy. So I bent down and
like, don't leave her in the bathroom because she's gonna go in the medicine cabinet. She's that type. She's gonna be all in the glove box in your car.
And I bent down and I put my hand in the hole and came up and I was like, what?
She said, what kind of cement is this?
I was like, what cement is this?
And everybody's looking around and the cameras, they said they stopped, but they were still rolling.
They were still rolling because that's what they do. They say this ABF, baby, this is always be filming. So they don't stop filming.
So she has this brown substance and it was poop on her hand.
Oh my God.
So that was one of the funnier moments. From
Nobody wanted to stop me because everybody saw me going down. Our showrunner was like, he was like, this is going to get me my Emmy. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
He was like, please go down. Please grab it. Oh my, she's really grabbing it. Oh my goodness. And he's watching and I literally went in the hole and I was like, what cement? Are they putting cement down here or something? And everyone, the showrunner was like, and cut. And everyone fell out. And I'm like, well, what? Is it? Where are everybody laughing about? What is going on? And that's just like, babe.
She learned that day. Don't put your hand down a hole in the bathroom that's been.
I had no idea that's where the toilet was.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so whatever will happen on a show is going to happen. That we ain't got to manufacture anything.
Wow. Well, that's actually really amazing too, because it's nice where things just flow naturally and organically.
Yeah.
That's what also makes it more fun too. You don't have to go and manufacture anything. I honestly think that's where probably a lot of the Bravo shows tend to go wrong is there's no limit and boundaries when you're having to fabricate things.
Yeah, the fake fights.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys, I genuinely feel represent such strong Black love on screen. So
thank you.
What would you say that visibility means to you?
I mean, I think the representation is just important.
Yeah.
And, we realize there's not a lot of people who look like us on TV in general. So we're like, hey, we got to have a positive representation showing that, there's folks who look like us who are about empowerment, bettering our people, putting a positive image out there. So that was important to us.
Yeah, you can't be what you don't see.
Right.
And for me, it's always been about representation. From when I even started dating Dedric. And he was like, yeah, I work in a nonprofit. It's helping, young inner city youth, show them, what you can do. And there was all these successful Black men like him, positive representation of them. And then I went to a meeting and I'm looking at it and I'm watching it. And I just told him, even with feedback, I said, listen, all of you guys are super successful. Every single one of you guys are suited and booted and you look good. How can these guys relate to you now? I said, because in their minds, I said, every single one of them had the baggy pants, the hoodies, and
we were going into a meeting wearing 3-piece suits, right? Because we're all successful businessmen. And she was like, these kids can't relate to you because, how you're dressed.
You're so far removed.
So then I started coming in dressing down and regular and wearing my baseball cap. And they're like, okay, now they can relate to you better because they see you as like, all right, he comes where I come from.
Now you can say, yeah, I'm from Roxbury, which is exactly where a lot of them live. Look, I'm from Roxbury. I'm from the Bury. I came from here. I lived on this street. This is where I'm from. And I told them, don't get me wrong. Yes, wear your suits, but you also got to meet them where they're at. And sometimes just come in dressed down and let them know that you are not that far removed. Right? You you are from 2 streets over from where they lived. You lived there your whole life. Even though you went to private schools, you had to go from one environment to the other. You had to code switch every day of your life. Let them know that. So for us, even on TV, it's about representation, showing them that no matter what your circumstances are, you can achieve whatever it is you set out to, as long as you put in that work. So for us, it's extremely important for us to show that, one, a minority couple, can work together and not be fighting on the show to get it done, but can work together and lift as we rise, lift others up as we rise.
Yes.
And help others see themselves even in what we're doing. So that's really what the show has been. It's been a blessing to us as well, to be able to show people that, and then also hear how the show is helping other people.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have imagined how many people just reach out to us like, man, I saw your TV show. Thank you. You inspired me to do this. You inspired me to see, greater in myself just from watching. And I didn't realize we had that impact, but it's been amazing.
We get letters from prison. Every other week, somebody from prison is writing those letters, how they watch the show. So apparently we big in the penal system. Big in the prison. They was like, they wrote us like, they know not to change the show when 50-50 flip come on. Of course, Dedric is like, that's because them tight jeans you be wearing on that show. I'm like, don't play me like that. They are here for the education.
Amen.
Okay?
They also like watching you. And I'm not mad at it. It's good eye candy. But no, guys in prison, they write us and say, hey, I'm in prison, but I want to rehabilitate myself. And you guys give me hope when I get out. I want to get into real estate because of watching you.
Yeah, one guy had said one of the most powerful letters we just read. And he said that for the first time watching that show, made him realize that he was in prison by his own doing and his own choices. Because to be able to see a young man that is his age, talking about Dedric, and that looks like me, make different choices. He was like, it wasn't until he saw this show that made him truly come face to face and finally realize that through his own actions is why he is in the situation that he's in. And now, for the first time, he's wanting to do something different in his life and wanting to do real estate. He was like, I'd never seen someone who truly looked like me, same age as me, do what Dedric is doing, where you look at him and be like, oh yeah, he should be doing it. He was like, but this brother looks like me. He talks like me. He was like, for the first time, he's had to come face to face with that. He was like, so I'm just wanted to let you guys know, is there any books you would recommend or da-da-da?
Oh, yeah.
And
we mailed him a bunch of books.
And told him, look us up when you get out. Lift as you rise is what
I love that. That is so important. And what would you say your advice is to other couples that are looking to build big dreams together?
Start how you want to finish.
Start how you want to finish. Well, we talked about earlier, having those upfront conversations, those asking the tough questions early to know where is that person's head at, where do they see themselves going, and are you aligned? And I think you don't have to have the same exact goals because every individual is different, but be on a similar path and have a similar end result. I think that's important as a couple when you get in together. And again, both don't have to be entrepreneurs, right? Because not everyone is meant to be entrepreneurs. Some people should be an employee, right? And some people love their work or they're working for someone else. I think, entrepreneurs should have another spouse that has a stable job because there's stability in that. Any other partner can take a little more risk because they have stability in their partner having a job. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say mentally being aligned as well as spiritually. Yeah. Right. So when Dedric and I got together, Dedric knew he had to, he knew I was very much into the church, still am. And in order for him for the first year, in order for him to even see me, he had to go where?
If she wasn't at work, she was at the church. And she was over several ministries, over the liturgical ministry. So I had to literally go to church.
Worship and arts ministry. So I was there. If I went at one of my 3 jobs, because I had 3 jobs, I was at church. And he understood that. And when I conversations that we had was when we first sat down was where he was spiritually as well. There's no need to try and fall in love with someone when you know you're a Christian and he Muslim. All of a sudden, like one of my girlfriends did. She Seventh-day Adventist, and she goes out on a date with a guy like 20 dates before she find out he's Muslim. What we doing here? And why
I would love to know. Yeah,
and she was like, "Well, it's
big process
it's
to
not
convert.
really gonna work." You don't think y'all should have had that conversation day one?
Yeah.
That you don't go out on Saturdays and he partying on Saturday? Like, what we doing? Y'all wasted all this time with that. So for us, I wanted to make sure spiritually, I knew we were going to one day want to have children. Spiritually, are we aligned as well as mentally? People know it's a physical attraction all the time when you meet someone, but are we equally yoked? Mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah. And so what would you say, do you have any tips or advice for people that maybe struggle to feel connected throughout being in business together and being in, a marriage, navigating fame? Like, I feel like sometimes things can feel mundane. So how do you keep that connection and strong, fire
with each other?
Passion? Yeah.
I would definitely say regular date nights.
Yeah.
Because
We have
Dedric
regular
is
date nights.
really great with just all of a sudden I see popped up on the calendar, date night. So he is very big
Keep
on
that spark.
scheduling random date nights every other week. So making sure that, and it's very hard when you have two small children that are super active. So every weekend we're traveling for a travel sport.
With their sports schedule. Like, hold on, homeboy. I need to take my wife on a date.
So we schedule around that. We'll come back from a weekend long tournament and he'll have a date on the calendar for like Sunday night and we'll run to a comedy show or something. So being able to pivot. And I think for us, it's always about making sure that the little things don't get ignored. Like, I don't like flowers. I've never been a flower girl.
Right.
I'm not going to water them.
Same.
Like
I'm just,
so I told him early on, I was like, I don't want you to waste your money on those because you can spend $100 on some roses, $200 on some roses. So I'd rather you get me something that lasts, right? But he will come in every now and then, every 2-3 weeks, he'll come in with like a orchid and it'll be purple, my favorite color, and it'll be beautiful. And he will water it because he know I'm not going to water it. But it's just the fact that he thought like, oh, this is a beautiful flower for my wife. And my kids get to see that because they'll be like, Daddy, why you buy her flowers?
Why you got flowers?
Why you got flowers? And he was like, because it's for mommy. And then they'll be like, for what? He was like, just because. He was like, you guys, when you get married, you're going to have to bring in flowers just because they do so much for you throughout the day and the week. You want to show them how much you love them and just bring them something pretty just like them and a flower. And for them to start to see that and now understand that for later on in life, it's really just the small things for us. And, when you get married and you get our age, when he do the laundry, I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Do that laundry.
Won't he do it? Like, if he do something, and we outsource our laundry now with a life hack, so somebody else do it. But if he just goes in and be like, yeah, I'm gonna just do this load real quick, or just, when I tell you, girl, just the small things, like if he pick up from behind the kids in the living room, it gets noticed.
Yes.
Because I'm usually the one who's having to do it.
Yeah.
And even for him, when I'd be like, oh, the cleaners are coming. And he'll be like, okay. He knows what that means. That means we got to clean.
Yep.
That means we got to clean the whole house because the cleaners are
don't
coming.
You do it? Like,
Where if it was just me, I'd be like, the cleaners are coming. They're going to clean up everything.
No, you have to make sure, like, to make it easier, certain things need to be removed
there
so
you
that
go.
they can get in certain places.
There
you can't just leave everything as is.
There you go.
Pre-clean
We see
before
each
the
other.
clean.
There you go.
So my last question for you guys would be, how has your definition of success changed over the years? Has it changed over the years?
Mine has definitely changed over the years. When I was younger, I thought being measured in success would be how much financially you have.
Yeah.
And how many people knew who you were. Like, how popular are you? How much money do you have in the bank? And how many people are connected to you. As I've gotten older, it's more about how many people have I helped? How many people have I been a blessing to? How many people have I been able to rise out of their circumstances? And I tell people all the time, it's not about how many doors Dedric and I own. It's about how many doors we've been able to open for another family to be able to come through and change the trajectory of their family tree. So now I measure success based off of how many lives and people can we touch and how my kids are taken care of. I tell people true generational wealth will be when you get 60 and 70 and your kids come back and want to be around you still.
Yes.
That is true generational wealth because my mother can't get rid of her kids because she done so much for us. I don't think there's been a day in my life since I've hit my 20s that I don't talk to her multiple times a day. Same thing with my brother. I'll call her and she's like, all right, well, your brother calling. Well, tell him to call you back. My God. It is literally, that's true generational wealth. When I know my kids will be able to come back home, will want to come back home. Because, there's a lot of kids who, and we know because we buy properties from a lot of these people, who kids don't come to visit, grandkids don't come to visit. That's why they're not leaving them anything.
Die alone.
They're selling off their portfolio, could care less because no one ever comes back. So I think that's a true measure of success is, are your kids happy, healthy, and willing to come back when you hit your 50s and 60s and take care of you now? That's generational wealth.
I love that.
Yeah, for me, I read a book recently. It's called Die with Zero. And it really kind of reframed my mind about success. Like Krystal said, most people think, it's about how much money you make and how much money you have. But the concept of this book was like, okay, you can make money, but you can't take it with you when you die.
Right.
So there's a lot of people who die with millions of dollars, even billions of dollars, but what did they do for someone else? So this book was like, the concept is like, all right, it's okay to do well financially, but why don't you give it away? Use that money in your lifetime for experiences and memories with the people that you love. Because you can't take the money, but you can take those memories, right? And even when you die, your friends and your family will remember those great times they had with you, right? And then also not waiting until you pass to give your money and your resources away. Give it now so you can actually see the impact of what you're giving and helping other people. So that really, it kind of changed my thinking on a lot. So I follow some of those principles, die with zero, and that's how we're kind of planning things.
Wow, actually, I'm actually going to give that book a read because that sounds really amazing. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that quote that says, people may forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Yes.
So that's why experiences are they're so incredible, where they
Powerful.
really, permeate people's soul, their spirit. And so I really do agree with that. So what is next for you guys? What are the Polites going to be up to?
God, everything. So I would say we're definitely working on my dreams now as well. So we're still doing real estate, of course. We're waiting on our green light for season 3. We are working on my dream of opening up a family entertainment center. So we bought a Sky Zone franchise through real estate. Bought a franchise. So we are now trying to lock in a location in our hometown for Sky Zone. And I want a chain. So I want anywhere from 20, 30 40 different FECs. And we finally actually just put another LOI out on a building. So hopefully this one will be it for the 40,000 square foot Sky Zone. So it'll probably be one of the largest ones that they have out there. It's about 42,000 square feet. Then we started a production company. called Pump Six Productions. Where'd I get that name?
Wow.
She got it.
I love that.
Yep. So we're going to, I've always wanted to get into producing and directing. That has been like a love of mine since college. So we're finally, I'm finally wanting to get into that. So we have about 2 shows that we're looking at now starting. One is, has to do with AAU basketball.
Yeah.
And because that's such a huge part of our life, it's literally, it feels like it's the only part of our life. When we leave here, we're flying back as soon as we leave here because we both of our sons have tournaments this weekend. So it is literally a huge part of our life. But our production company, what else do we have?
We just launched a book. So we have a book on wholesaling. So we teach anyone who's interested in learning how to wholesale real estate, whether it's New York, anywhere nationwide, how to get into wholesaling without having a real estate license and without having a lot of money or cash. So it's called the Ultimate Wholesaling Book, and we have a whole kit. So it's a book, it's a marketing playbook on how to find motivated sellers, and we have a cash offer calculator. So we'll send you the link. You can put it in the show notes for anyone who wants to pick up that book.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Polites, Dedric and Krystal, thank you so much for coming to Quality Queen Control. Everything that you guys need to know about the Polites are going to be in the show notes down below so that you can check them out. And do not forget to check out their show, 50/50 Flip, on Hulu. And with that being said, do not forget that I love you and God loves you. And I'll see you guys in my next podcast episode. Mwah.